So when I recognized in myself when I was 220 that I had an addiction to food,
Yeah.
I realized, man, all of us as human beings are absolutely addicted to dopamine. Dopamine.
Yeah.
And if nothing interesting is happening in life, food will do.
Yes.
And I was stuffing my face with a desire to fulfill dopamine
Right.
with food.
Yeah.
So you get into your 30s and you have some kids and life's going, you get business stress and all. Hey, food solves all those problems. Wine solves all those problems. More calories in, I feel really, really good about myself and I can medicate myself on a daily basis. I had an addiction to food and low quality foods.
Yeah.
Domino's, nasty McDonald's. That's what I was eating late at night. I wasn't even hungry, but I was eating because I was addicted. So you have to solve the addiction first. So I'm in phase 1. You're seeing me right now, 6 months into the journey. You watched me burn the fat off. And now 2 months of me starting to main gain where I'm just keeping the fat off and adding a little bit of muscle while still restricting my calories down far lower than it ever was before. But what does phase 2 look like? Phase 2 is to start to understand how do I gain muscle. And then phase 3 is to make that final change to say, let me focus a lot more on the nutrition and make sure I'm getting the vitamin A and the vitamin D and doing all of the natural, eating more salads and getting more leafy greens and the produce and the outside of the grocery aisle. But all of that has to happen after you solve the addiction first.
Okay.
You've got to remove the crack addict from the crack.
Yeah.
Get him into rehab and just say, hey, live the same life, no crack.
Okay.
And then we start to make changes and say, hey, why were you on the crack in the first place? If you start with the therapy, the guy, and still give him crack, it ain't going to fix the problem. It has to be a phased approach.
You're wrong
I'm
about
in phase
this.
1. When you see me in phase 3 and I'm enjoying eating chicken salads every single day and living a disciplined life that way, what will you say then?
You're wrong about this one. You're going to be on my side with this in a short period of time. But let me just give you the example because you brought up Dave Ramsey. You brought up credit card debt, right? When someone has a credit card debt problem, they've racked up $20,000 of credit card debt. Do we tell that person to stop using their credit card or to get control and just use the credit card less?
Dave Ramsey says cut it up.
Stop using the credit card.
Yeah.
Right. Stop. Today, you're done. You're talking about thinking that you have an addiction to food, but you haven't asked the question why. And when you ask the question why, I think you go one step deeper and you understand, oh, there are certain foods that cause me to be addicted. I don't care how addicted someone is to food. You know what people never overeat on? Salad, single ingredient foods. If you just eat steak, you can only eat so much. You hit the wall and you stop. But put that onto a pizza, right? Where I've got the cheese and the sauce and the bread and all that kind of stuff. There are certain foods, like if you're being honest with yourself, you know this already. There are certain foods that you can continue to eat when you're full, and that is what the addiction is. It's an addiction to those foods, not food in general. So we have to stop the stuff. If you truly believe that like this was an addiction of mine, you got to stop with those foods. This is what I keep telling you. You have more willpower than the average person. The reason why a bunch of people aren't doing the plan that you did is because it doesn't work for most people. Because if they keep eating those same foods, that doesn't work. Now, if you go to the lifestyle change and you say, I'm done with that food. I'm done with that food. And now I'm going to start to bring in single ingredient whole foods. You might not lose weight at the same rate, but you'll get healthier.
We are right around the new year right now. This is how I know you're wrong.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because New Year's Day comes and goes, and everyone makes these resolutions after the holidays that I gave myself all this leeway, Thanksgiving, Christmas, gain 10 pounds, put it on. I'm going on a diet, and I'm going to start working out. They go cold turkey on all the bad stuff, and they say, this is the year I make the final change, and I'm just going to eat chicken salads from this point forward. We know the results of that. They're out of the gym by February, and they're off the diet by January 15th. Because they try to do too much. They're biting off more than they can chew. Small changes is the way that you get improvement. It's in business, it's the exact same way as it is in the rest of our life. If you want to have someone change, you do small changes incrementally, getting larger and larger, building on top of a foundation of, wow, I have so much confidence. I made this one change. I saw this result. Now I'm willing to take the next step and go make the next change and the next change and the next change. You have to build a body of work to get to the really hard stuff, which is cold turkey. I never eat Domino's or pizza ever again. I get all my nutrients from natural ingredients. I grow it in my garden outside, and I don't take vitamins anymore. I get it from the leafy greens that are around me. I grow it all myself. But you can't just start with that. You have to work your way up to that. Look, I'll give you an analogy here, because we're sitting here in this studio right now, which I'm very proud of how it all came together.
It's amazing.
When I walked in this room for the first time 6 months ago, it was an empty room. There was no vision for it. And the first podcast we shot here was on blank walls behind us with really shitty microphones. We didn't have a nice background and good lighting. And now you come in here today and the lights are hung and you can tell Alexa what you want her to do to go and make all this happen. That's only possible because we made lots of tiny little changes over time. We added nice microphones, and then we added a couple new lights, but they weren't hung up. We just put them here in front of us. And then we added some nice chairs and a background and some LED lights. And it all comes together slowly over time, where if you compare what it was 6 months ago to what it is today, massive change has taken place.
Great.
But if I was trying to undertake building all of this from day one, when I walked in here, I never would have started, because it's too much to take on. But when you do one piece at a time, the next step starts to feel very easy. I'm an engineer by trade.
Yep.
And as an engineer, they taught us how to take a complex problem and break it down into little tiny bite-sized pieces. Think about an equation from calculus when you're in high school.
Yeah.
If you try to solve the whole thing just by looking at it, it's incredibly hard to do. You have to be a savant or a genius to do it. But when you break it down and start solving one piece at a time, you work your way to a solution on the back end. And that's the same way that we as human beings need to change. It's a complex process to change. Let's break it down into little tiny steps. Okay, what's step number one? Do that. Step number two, and you work your way to a solution, which is change, which is health, and which is excellence across the board, both in your business and also in your health. But you cannot change that quickly. I'll give you the final word.
I just want to be clear that when we talk about excellence here, you're telling the gambling addict, just gamble less. That's your first step, is gamble less. Keep gambling, but gamble less. If you have a problem with crack, just smoke less crack. That's all I got to say on that.
We'll leave it there.